Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are tackling a really big one.
Oh yeah, this is a monumental case, one that people have been asking about for a long time.
It is. This is a listener-requested deep dive into what is, well, maybe the gold standard or the ultimate nightmare in UFO lore. The 1975 alleged abduction of Travis Walton.
And it is monumental for a reason. This isn't just one person's story. It's one of the very few cases backed by multiple immediate eyewitnesses.
And not just eyewitnesses, but a significant amount of forensic investigation.
Exactly. We're talking polygraph tests, medical exams, the whole thing. The crew was put under a microscope.
So our mission today is to unpack all of it. The incident itself, the evidence from investigators, and the intense controversy that followed. We're going to stick to the verifiable facts from the sources.
Try to get past all the movie myths.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's unpack this.
So the sources set the scene really vividly. It's November 5th, 1975. We're in the Sitgreaves National Forest in northeastern Arizona.
On the Mogollon Rim, which is apparently the world's largest ponderosa pine forest. So it's remote.
Very. And Walton isn't alone. He's 22, part of a 7-man logging crew. They're not just out there randomly. They have a contract for timber stand improvement.
Which is basically clearing out dead trees to, limit fire danger.
Right. And the crew boss is a guy named Mike Rogers. He's 28. They're all heading home for the day at dusk, packed into this old 1965 International truck.
And that's when it happens. Their headlights sweep across a clearing, and they see it.
A strange, unusually bright light just hovering there. The witnesses all described it as this smooth, disc-like object.
Giving off a sort of yellowish-orange glow. Yeah. And this is the moment it goes from just a sighting to something else.
Yeah, because Travis Walton makes let's say, an incredibly reckless decision.
He gets out of the truck,
jumps out, and just starts running toward this thing.
Before he can even get there, the crew watches in horror as this blue ray, a blast of energy, shoots out from the bottom of the craft.
And it hits him.
The crew's testimony right after the event is just terrifying. They see his body arch backward, arms and legs flung out, and he's thrown like 10 feet through the air.
Lands motionless on the rocky ground, and you can just imagine the panic. The sources say the men were screaming, "It got him!"
Let's get out of here.
And the crew boss, Mike Rogers, he just floors it. He reacts on pure instinct to save everyone else. A surge of terror, as the sources put it.
But they only get about 200 yards down the road.
Right. The shock starts to wear off, and this horrible realization kicks in.
They left him. They left Travis behind. So after this terrible, frantic argument, they decide they have to go back.
They turn the truck around, get back to the clearing, and nothing.
He's gone. The craft is gone, and so is Travis Walton. No trace of him at all.
And this is critical. No body, no blood, no footprints other than their own. And importantly, no burn marks on the vegetation, which you'd expect from, say, a lightning strike or some massive energy discharge.
So they drive into the nearest town, Heber, and call the sheriff's office.
And they know how this sounds. So at first, they try to play it down. One of the loggers, Ken Peterson, just tells the deputy that one of their crew got lost in the woods.
But that cover story falls apart immediately.
Yeah, the deputy could see something was deeply wrong. The men were pale, their expressions were taut. The source material says one of them, Steve Pierce, had tear streaks on his face.
They were visibly traumatized.
Absolutely. And that raw, genuine fear is what made law enforcement realize something serious had happened. So the crew finally tells them the whole unbelievable story about the UFO.
Which, of course, throws them directly into a firestorm.
A complete nightmare. Because law enforcement, led by Sheriff Marlon Gillespie, they immediately have a theory.
And it's not aliens.
No, it's murder. They think the 6 loggers killed Walton and cooked up this insane UFO story as a cover-up.
I mean, you can see their logic. A man is missing, and the only witnesses have a story that sounds like science fiction.
And the pressure on them was immense. It wasn't just the police. The sources say Walton's own brother, Dwayne, suspected them of foul play at first. He and a friend actually confronted the crew, threatening them.
So the suspect's in a potential murder, and the victim's family thinks they did it.
Exactly. Now, to his credit, Sheriff Gillespie was thorough. He was looking for an easy explanation. Were they drunk? On drugs? He said, "I sat in their truck a short time after it happened. I sure didn't spot anything, and I was looking."
So he could tell they weren't intoxicated. And he sensed they actually believed what they were saying, even if he didn't.
Which brings us to the polygraph tests. This is probably the most crucial piece of evidence in the whole case.
Right. 5 of the crewmen, Mike Rogers, Steve Pierce, Ken Peterson, Dwayne Smith, and John Gillette, they all agreed to take a lie detector test.
And you have to understand, they were terrified. These are working class guys suddenly in the middle of a murder investigation, and they're worried the test could be rigged, maybe by the government or someone.
But they do it anyway. And the examiner is Cy Gilson, a professional from the Department of Public Safety.
And Gilson's results were, well, they were stunning. His report was incredibly definitive.
He used the word prove, which is unusually strong for a polygraph report. He concluded they did see some object they believed to be a UFO, and that Travis Walton was not injured or murdered by any of these men.
This is the moment the whole case pivots, because, look, polygraphs aren't perfect. They're not always admissible in court. But the statistical weight here is just staggering.
Yeah, the sources cite Edward Gelb, who was the president of the American Polygraph Association at the time. He reviewed the case.
And his conclusion was that the odds of 5 different people telling the same complex lie under that kind of pressure and all of them passing a rigorous polygraph test.
What were the odds?
1,000,000 to 1.
1,000,000 to 1. So if murder is a statistical improbability, why did the skepticism just get worse?
That's the real question, isn't it? The polygraph results basically flipped Occam's razor on its head. Suddenly, the simplest explanation wasn't they lied and killed him.
Right. The more complex theory was now that 5 men managed to perfectly coordinate a lie and somehow beat a professional polygraph examiner.
A far more complicated scenario than just accepting that something truly strange happened out there.
And this is when the organized debunkers really enter the picture. The sources mention Philip Klass, for example.
Yeah, and Walton later accused them of using underhanded tactics, things like altering quotes, attacking the character of the men involved.
Anything but actually addressing the polygraph data or the physical traces found at the site, like the magnetic anomalies.
It became about discrediting the witnesses, not evaluating the evidence.
So 5 days go by. The search parties find absolutely nothing. And then Travis Walton is back.
He just reappears. Found near a phone booth by a gas station in Heber. He's in terrible shape, in pain, traumatized.
And completely confused. When his family gets to him, he thinks it's still the same night. He has no idea 5 days have passed.
That's the classic missing time element. The source says the physical proof for him was feeling his own face and realizing he had a 5-day growth of beard. And he'd lost over 10 pounds.
Wow. And the medical exams are just as strange, mostly for what they didn't find.
Exactly. They did an EKG, an EEG, brain scans, heart monitors, everything was normal. So that rules out things like a stroke or a major electrical shock from something like lightning.
They also ran tests for drugs and alcohol.
Completely clean. Which medically refutes the whole drug hallucination theory. There was no sign of a blow to the head, no burns. The only physical mark was a single, small, reddish dot on the inside of his right elbow.
So with no conscious memory of those 5 days, he agrees to undergo regression hypnosis.
With a Dr. James Harder. And this is where his side of the story comes out. And it's very different from what people think they know from the movies.
So what did he recall?
He remembered waking up on a metal table in pain with a bright light above him. And he sees these 3 beings. Short, grayish, hairless, with huge, luminous brown eyes.
And his reaction is pretty incredible. He doesn't just freeze in fear.
No, he fights back. He lunges at them, grabs this thin, transparent cylinder like a glass-like wand off a bench, and uses it to defend himself.
And the beings, they run away.
They scurried away. They seemed scared of him, which is such a strange detail.
And after that, the environment changes completely.
It does. He leaves that room and enters another with a curved ceiling that was basically a window. He said he saw nothing but the stars in the sky. He was looking out into space.
And that's when he meets another type of being.
Right. A tall, human-looking man in a large glass helmet. This figure doesn't speak, just motions for Walton to follow him.
And he's led into this huge, hangar-like room with 2 other saucer-shaped craft inside.
And then finally, into a room with 3 more of these human-looking people not wearing helmets. One might have been a woman. They don't communicate with him at all. The last thing he remembers is being put in a chair, a clear mask is placed over his face, and then he blacks out.
It's a very sober telling of the event, almost clinical, which makes what happened with the movie version even more frustrating for her.
Oh, for sure. The sources make it clear that the human cost of this was tremendous. Walton suffered from dangerous levels of stress, intense psychological trauma.
And it broke the group apart, didn't it? He and Mike Rogers had a falling out that lasted for years.
It did. Walton even suggests the constant public scrutiny and pressure was a factor in why many of the other loggers got divorced later on. Their lives were basically torn apart by this.
Then comes the movie Fire in the Sky in 1993. And while he said it captured the human drama well, the friendships, the accusations, it took huge liberties with the abduction itself.
Massive liberties. They added all that lurid fictional stuff. The cocoon scene, the icky goo.
Things he never described.
Never. And that Hollywood sensationalism made it so much easier for critics to just dismiss the whole thing as a joke because it buried his actual, much stranger and more sober account.
Which brings us back to his main point, this call for objectivity. He's actually very careful about not making grand claims.
Right, he never says, I was taken by aliens from another planet. He leaves the door open. Are they extraterrestrial, other dimensional, time travelers, or even some secret black budget government tech? He just doesn't know.
And I think his main argument is really a challenge to how we think. He says the true watchdog of truth is someone who neither accepts nor rejects a claim until all the evidence is properly evaluated.
And he points out how the debunkers so often fail that test. They violate basic logic, like the law of contradiction, claiming it was both a planned hoax and a drug hallucination at the same time.
You can't have it both ways. It's either one or the other.
Exactly. And they misuse Occam's razor. They picked hoax because it was the most normal explanation. But as we said, the polygraph data actually makes the hoax the most complex and statistically improbable one.
They chose the story that fit their worldview.
They chose what they wanted to be true, not what the data supported.
So what does this all mean? We've got one of the most documented UFO cases ever. You have multiple witnesses, consistent stories, polygraph tests that say they were being truthful, and medical data that rules out all the simple explanations.
And I think the sources suggest the real story here isn't just about a UFO. It's about how our own perception of reality is compulsively filtered through the screening mesh of what we want and do not want to be true.
It's a test of how open-minded we can actually be when faced with the extraordinary.
Precisely.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. We've followed the timeline from the event to the investigation. But there's a final, very provocative detail in the sources about that police investigation. Years later, when Paramount was researching for the movie, they tried to get the official police file from Sheriff Gillespie's office. They were told the file could not be found. It had just vanished. So it leaves you with this final question. If the official conclusion from law enforcement was that these men weren't murderers, that they passed every test they were given, why would the physical records of such a famous investigation just disappear? It makes you wonder what or who was actually being protected.